I paid for my husband's medical treatments. While working abroad, when I came home to surprise him on his birthday, I found my best friend pregnant with his baby. They actually expected me to keep supporting them. About 3 days ago, I found myself walking into what I assumed was still my home, expecting everything to be as I left it. Instead, I stumbled upon something that left me absolutely shocked and heartbroken. My husband, Jeff, was there with my childhood best friend, Grace, and they were caught in the midst of an affair. But that's not all. Grace was visibly pregnant, and the baby was his. The absolute worst part of this disastrous situation is that they genuinely thought it was reasonable to expect me to keep sending money from Europe to support their lives together, while they played house without a care in the world. To make some sense of this madness, I need to backtrack and explain how all of this came to be. Jeff and I had been married for a couple of years when he was diagnosed with a rare form of cystic fibrosis at the age of 24. We were blindsided when our insurance provider outright refused to cover the experimental treatments crucial for his health, branding them as merely investigational and not medically necessary. We found ourselves in a battle, appealing multiple times, but each attempt was met with rejection. Legal advice from various lawyers confirmed our fears that winning a lawsuit was nearly impossible since the treatment protocols didn't have FDA approval yet. We were drowning financially under the weight of medical bills, which totaled around $4,000 monthly just for the medications. This didn't even account for the specialist visits and monitoring that had to be done every few weeks. We had already exhausted our savings and were on the brink of financial ruin when a lifeline appeared. An international consulting firm offered me a position with a salary that was almost triple my current earnings. The downside? I had to be based in their Munich office for a minimum of 2 years, maybe more depending on the project timeline. After numerous heart-to-heart discussions, Jeff and I agreed that taking the job was our only viable option to afford his treatments and keep him alive. My plan was to send home about 40% of my salary monthly, which would ensure Jeff's medical expenses were covered and that he had a decent quality of life. This would continue until we either saved enough for better insurance coverage or until his treatments were more widely recognized and covered by our initial insurance. Given Jeff's inability to work full-time due to his condition, we needed someone to be there for his daily needs and medical appointments. Grace, who had been my best friend since we were 8 years old, selflessly offered to move in with him. I trusted her unequivocally. She was always by our side throughout Jeff's illness and offered her help by researching treatment options and driving him to appointments when I was busy trying to save money before leaving for Europe. The arrangement felt perfect. Grace would have a place to stay since she was in between jobs and her lease was ending. Jeff had someone reliable to care for him, and I could focus on my work with peace of mind. We kept in touch through daily video calls, where Jeff seemed to be doing well, and Grace provided updates on his health and schedules. Wanting to surprise Jeff, I planned an early return for his upcoming birthday the following week. I secretly managed time off work and booked a flight without informing them. I envisioned a joyful reunion, but what awaited me was a nightmare. As I entered my home, using my own key, I saw them cozy on the couch, watching a movie together. Grace's pregnancy was unmistakable. The first words Jeff uttered were, "This isn't what it looks like," which was utterly absurd given the situation. Grace was pregnant and they were holding hands. When I demanded to know how long this had been happening, Grace broke down, admitting they developed feelings for each other around 4 months ago. She was already 5 months pregnant with his child. Jeff then attempted to explain that they had been waiting to tell me about their relationship until I returned permanently, not wanting to disrupt my work. They had the audacity to propose that I continue my job in Munich and financially support them while they figured out a way to build their new family life. Grace added that I should be understanding of their situation because she had been sacrificing her own life to take care of Jeff while I was living it up in Europe, claiming it was natural for them to develop feelings given their time spent together. The most outrageous suggestion came when Jeff proposed that we shouldn't rush a divorce because it would be convenient for everyone if I remained his legal spouse. This way, he could stay on my health insurance while they sorted out their long-term plans. Since Grace was unemployed and unable to secure insurance that covered his condition, they argued that it made financial sense for me to stay married, at least until their baby was born. I was beyond appalled, and made it clear that they were delusional if they thought I would continue bankrolling their affair and support their baby while they cozied up in my home on my dime. Jeff got defensive, calling me unreasonable given his medical needs, which relied on my salary. Grace chimed in, asserting that splitting up their family would effectively sentence Jeff to death because they couldn't afford his treatments without my help. In disbelief, I left the house immediately and checked into a hotel to figure out my next steps. I've decided to file for divorce as soon as possible and will fight any alimony claims they might attempt. I'm also consulting with a lawyer to see if I can recover any of the money I contributed to our joint accounts and household expenses over the past 18 months while I was supporting him from abroad. What infuriates me the most is the realization that they seemingly orchestrated this situation, hoping to manipulate me into continuing to support their lifestyle while they started a new family. Grace even had the gall to suggest I should be happy for them, as if I should celebrate their betrayal while I was working tirelessly in another country to ensure Jeff's survival. Some might say I should have seen this coming, or that long-distance relationships are doomed to fail, but I genuinely trusted them both and believed we were all working toward the same goal. You wouldn't believe the mess I'm in right now. Initially, I was focused on getting Jeff back to good health so I could finally come home for good. But little did I know, in my absence, they were secretly building a relationship, using my financial support. And now they expect me to keep funding their little escapade even after I found out. I'm just overwhelmed, trying to wrap my head around this betrayal and figure out how to legally and financially safeguard myself. Divorce is definitely on the cards, and it looks like I'll need to quit my job in Munich and move back to the U.S. for good to handle this nightmare. It's just mind-boggling to me that Jeff and Grace, the two people I trusted the most, could do this to me, yet they're acting like I'm the one who's out of line for not wanting to bankroll their affair. Update 1. It's been a whirlwind of a week since I stumbled upon Jeff and Grace's effort, but I've made some headway in sorting my life out. I've moved out of the hotel and am currently crashing with my parents while I scout for a good divorce attorney and plan my next steps. I've tracked down 3 family law specialists who focus on cases involving medical expenses and spousal support. I have appointments with them this week to decide who I want on my team. From our initial chats, it sounds like I've got a solid chance of dodging alimony payments to Jeff due to the adultery. Plus, I can prove that I was the one mainly banking our household while he was sneaking around with Grace. My lawyers think I might even claw back some of the cash I sent home over the past year and a half, especially considering the funds that ended up in our joint savings or went towards household projects. Luckily, I kept meticulous records of all my transfers, documenting every penny I put towards our joint expenses while I was working abroad. I'm also in the process of kicking Jeff off my health insurance policy, which will take effect at the end of this month. I gave my insurance company the lowdown on the situation, and they confirmed I can remove him as soon as the divorce paperwork is submitted. Jeff's tried calling me several times since I found out, but I'm dodging his calls and have blocked both him and Grace on all social media platforms. Thankfully, my parents have been amazing throughout all of this. They're letting me stay with them as long as I need to get back on my feet. They've also offered to help out with any legal costs, though I should be fine covering it myself since I've been saving up while working in Munich. Surprisingly, the job situation in Munich is turning out better than I thought. After filling in my supervisor, she told me the company's been itching to ramp up their domestic operations. So, they're offering me a transfer to their Chicago office. Yeah, there's a pay cut and some lost benefits, but at least I don't have to hunt for a new job while juggling the divorce process. I've been reflecting on my luck in catching them when I did, because Grace's pregnancy would have spilled the beans eventually. If I'd stayed in Munich for a few more months, unaware, they might have been plotting their story or messing with our finances in ways I couldn't easily undo later on. It dawned on me that Jeff and Grace probably thought they had more time to concoct a plan on how to break it to me, especially since I was supposed to be in Munich for another 6 months. Showing up early for Jeff's birthday caught them off guard, giving them no time to sync their stories or prep for my reaction. My folks and I are going through all the financial paperwork and joint accounts to ensure I have everything ready for the divorce proceedings. We stumbled upon evidence that Jeff was using our joint credit card to buy stuff for Grace, like prenatal vitamins and maternity clothes, which will definitely strengthen my case in proving he was splurging marital assets on his affair partner. I'm filing the divorce papers this week, and I'm also planning on requesting temporary orders to stop him from accessing our joint accounts or making any big financial moves while the divorce is in progress. I haven't heard a peep from Grace since I caught them in the act, but apparently her mom called mine yesterday to apologize for her daughter's conduct. Grace's parents are none too pleased with her and have made it clear they won't be bailing her out financially during her pregnancy or pitching in once the baby arrives. It's surreal to think that just 2 weeks ago, I was blissfully unaware, believing I had a loving marriage and a loyal best friend helping me through a rough patch. Now, I'm orchestrating a divorce and cutting ties with someone who's been in my life for over 2 decades. But here's the silver lining. I'm starting to feel optimistic about the road ahead, knowing I'll be much better off without people willing to betray my trust and exploit my generosity. Update 2. Yesterday, I officially filed for divorce and handed in my resignation for the job in Munich. It's been a hectic whirlwind of legal documents and key life decisions, but I'm feeling more in control now that I'm taking solid steps forward. My attorney has filed the divorce petition along with requests for temporary orders to secure my assets during the pending case. We're pushing for an equal division of all marital property, plus reimbursement for the money I contributed to household expenses and Jeff's medical treatments while he was having an affair with Grace. The temporary orders also include a clause preventing Jeff from racking up new debt in my name or accessing our joint accounts without my okay. My lawyer explained that this is pretty standard in adultery divorce cases to stop the cheating spouse from spending marital assets on their affair partner or hiding funds before the final property division. 2 days ago, Jeff's folks showed up at my parents' place wanting to discuss the divorce with me. Initially, they tried to persuade me that Jeff and Grace's relationship was just a fleeting phase caused by the stress of his medical condition and my absence. His mom even suggested that if I came back home and focused on our marriage, Jeff might realize his feelings for Grace weren't real, and they'd break up. When I laid out that I wasn't keen on reconciling with someone who's been deceiving me for months and expecting me to fund his affair, Jeff's dad got real about their actual concerns. He confessed they were anxious about. So here's how it all went down. I was in a real tough spot, thinking about how Jeff would manage to cover his medical bills without my paycheck and insurance. That's when his parents chimed in with their 2 cents. They floated this idea that maybe I shouldn't rush into divorcing Jeff. Instead, they thought we could come up with some kind of plan where I'd keep helping him out financially until he found another way to handle things. Jeff's mom even took it a step further, suggesting that Jeff should dump Grace and compel her to end the pregnancy so that Jeff and I could work on patching things up. I was floored and told them straight up that their suggestions were way out of line. I made it clear I wasn't going to put my own well-being on the back burner or let myself be manipulated just because Jeff was dealing with health issues. Jeff's dad wasn't having any of it and accused me of being selfish, saying that if I was ready to walk away now, it meant I never truly cared about Jeff. That's when I reminded them about the year and a half I'd spent working overseas, sending most of my earnings back home to cover Jeff's treatments, all while he was cozying up with another woman. Plus, let's not forget, they never once offered to help with any of those medical expenses themselves. After that, Jeff's parents left, but not before his mom expressed hope that I would reconsider, because they couldn't see how else Jeff would make it without my financial help. It was obvious they were more focused on losing the financial stability I provided rather than caring about the emotional turmoil and betrayal I'd endured. On the flip side, dealing with Grace's family was an entirely different ballgame. They actually reached out to me directly to apologize for what Grace had done. They even told me they were cutting off all financial aid for her, including her college tuition and living expenses. Grace's mom said they were mortified by her actions and couldn't wrap their heads around how she could betray a friendship that spanned 2 decades. They also made it clear they wouldn't be supporting Grace or the baby financially once it's born, disapproving of how everything went down. Grace's dad chimed in, saying they'd raised her with better values and were deeply disappointed she had chosen to wreck a marriage and friendship for a possibly fleeting relationship. The financial impact on both Jeff and Grace is already taking a toll. Without my income, Jeff can't keep up with his full treatment regimen, and he's had to switch to a cheaper, less effective medication. Meanwhile, Grace is scrambling to find a job, but it's tough going because she's pregnant, hasn't worked in ages, and lacks marketable skills. My lawyer mentioned that Jeff might try to request spousal support in the divorce, but she's feeling pretty confident we can fight it due to the adultery. She also said the fact that Jeff was spending marital money on Grace during their affair works in my favor when it comes to splitting assets. Next week, I'm kicking off my new job in Chicago, and I've found a cozy little apartment close to work that I can easily afford on my own. It feels so freeing to finally start focusing on my own future instead of always stressing over other people's financial and medical woes. The toughest part of this whole mess has been coming to terms with the fact that the version of Jeff I thought I married doesn't exist. The Jeff I believed in wouldn't manipulate my love and concern to fund an affair. And the Grace I thought was my best friend would never have thrown away 20 years of friendship for a fling with my husband. But now I'm starting to see it's better I learned their true colors sooner rather than later, so I don't keep sacrificing my happiness for people who are all too eager to exploit my kindness and loyalty. I'm really looking forward to building a new life where I'm not constantly worried about supporting people who don't appreciate what I do for them. Update 3. So Jeff agreed to all the divorce terms and signed the paperwork a month ago, which means all we have to do now is wait out the required 60-day waiting period before the divorce is finalized. Honestly, I was pretty shocked he didn't put up a fight about how we divided things or ask for spousal support, but my lawyer thinks he probably realized he didn't have a leg to stand on given the circumstances of our split. Jeff had been trying to get me to meet up in person to talk about the divorce terms, but I shot that down because I didn't see any point in chatting face-to-face with someone who'd been lying to me for months. I let him know through our attorneys that he could communicate anything crucial through his lawyer, but I wasn't interested in personal discussions about our marriage or his thing with Grace. Yesterday afternoon, Jeff rocked up to my parents' place, even though I had made it clear I didn't want to see him. My folks were out, and I was chillin' in the backyard with a good book when I heard someone calling my name from the front. When I went to check it out, there was Jeff standing on the lawn calling for me to come and talk. He started rattling off apologies and saying he knew he messed up, but that we could still save our marriage if I was willing to work at it. Then he said something utterly outrageous that just showed how out of touch with reality he had become. He claimed that I was actually the reason he and Grace ended up together because my absence forced them to lean on each other for emotional support. Jeff went on to say that if I'd been a better wife and found a way to stay home and take care of him instead of accepting the job in Munich, he never would have caught feelings for Grace. Basically, he was saying that my decision to put my career first had set the stage for their affair, so I was partly to blame for what happened. That's when I completely lost it and stormed outside to confront him. I laid it all out, telling him I took the job in Munich specifically to pay for his medical treatments and keep him alive, and that blaming me for his affair was the most manipulative, ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I also reminded him that Grace was supposed to be my best friend, and they both stabbed me in the back while I was working my butt off to support them. Jeff kept trying to cut me off, justifying his behavior by saying I didn't understand how hard it was for him to be sick and alone while I was living in. I was told by him that Grace had been more supportive of him than I could be, simply because of the distance. He claimed their relationship developed naturally since they were spending so much time together. I pointed out that many couples manage long-distance relationships without cheating, and he was just making excuses for behavior that was completely unacceptable. They had planned to continue their affair indefinitely, with me footing the bill for their lifestyle, proving they weren't sorry for what they did, just sorry they got caught. When Jeff insisted I was being unreasonable and should be more understanding of his medical situation, I slapped him and told him to leave my parents' property and never contact me again unless it was legally necessary. He seemed shocked, but left without another word. I immediately called my lawyer to document what happened and ensure Jeff's unannounced visit wouldn't mess up the divorce proceedings. My lawyer assured me his behavior might actually help my case, showing he wasn't respecting my wishes or following legal procedures. When my parents got home an hour later, I filled them in. Dad said he wished he'd been there to throw Jeff out, while Mom worried Jeff might return. We decided to install security cameras and would call the cops if he showed up again. I felt better about slapping Jeff, even though I knew it wasn't the best way to handle things. His audacity to blame me for his affair was infuriating. He had taken advantage of my love and support for months while building a relationship with my best friend, then tried to make it seem like it was my fault. The 60-day waiting period will soon be over, and I'll be officially divorced, finally free of any ties to Jeff. I'm eager to rebuild my life and start fresh without supporting someone who used my generosity. In the latest update, I've been settling into my new life in Chicago, and things are going great. Despite everything, I'm happy with how things have turned out. I recently heard that Jeff and Grace broke up a couple of weeks ago. They couldn't manage financially without family support and ended up fighting constantly. Grace is still planning to have the baby and has moved back in with her parents, who decided to support her through the pregnancy despite their disapproval of the situation. Yesterday, Jeff sent me an email that was laughably absurd. He blamed me for their child growing up in a broken home, claiming that if I had been more understanding, he and Grace could have provided a stable home. He also ranted about gender double standards, upset that I faced no consequences for slapping him while he was suffering for his mistake with Grace. I didn't reply because it's pointless to entertain his guilt trips for decisions he and Grace made. Their relationship falling apart as soon as they lost financial backing just proves their feelings weren't strong enough to withstand real-world problems, making his claims of true love seem even more ridiculous. Meanwhile, my new job is going well. I'm making friends and enjoying life in Chicago. It's refreshing not to worry about medical bills and to have my salary for my own needs and goals instead of supporting someone who betrayed me. I look forward to finalizing the divorce soon and closing this chapter of my life. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm living for myself, not sacrificing everything for unworthy people.